Let's run a bit of a thought experiment and assume that a deep global recession is going to hit within the next 12 months, and we can all kind of feel it coming. Companies will start cutting costs because consumer spending is going to slow down, hiring freezes are going to turn into layoffs, and entire businesses can disappear almost overnight. But here's the real question I want to discuss in this video. Who's actually going to survive this better? Is it going to be the average office worker, or is it going to be somebody who runs a maker business? I'm not going to hype you up here or give you a pile of motivational quotes. Instead, I want to look at actual history, actual economics, because this isn't the first time the global economic system has collapsed. And when we look at how makers did the last time this happened, the answer to my question might surprise you. So let's get into it. So to start answering my question, we need to look at the last time the global economy truly broke, the Great Depression. Now, starting in 1929, cash dried up, credit disappeared, businesses quickly failed, and jobs didn't slowly decline, they vanished. And people who were hit first and the hardest were office workers and white-collar employees. They depended on one employer and one paycheck, and when companies shut down, income just went to zero overnight. Their skills weren't useless, but they were abstract because they only worked inside organizations that no longer needed them. So now compare that situation to people who could make things. Tailors, cobblers, mechanics, carpenters, all people who had their own tools and controlled their own efforts. When money stopped moving, their skills didn't disappear. They started repairing things that could no longer be replaced. They bartered when cash failed, and they worked hard from homes and small shops. Were they thriving? Definitely not, but they stayed useful, and usefulness mattered more than credentials. And that was the big difference. Office workers waited for the economy to recover. Makers just simply adapted to the economy that existed. And that distinction is exactly why this comparison matters right now. Now, here's where a lot of people get hung up on economics. They hear the word recession and they assume that people are just going to completely stop spending. But that's not what actually happens. What changes is how people spend. In a downturn, people pull back on big risky purchases, luxury items, and are just completely off their shopping lists, and novelty purchases slow down a lot. So no houses, no new cars. Spending on anything that feels optional gets questioned. People will pay for repairs to keep things they already have running, but when they do buy things, they're always more practical. And this is where makers have a big advantage. So as makers, we don't need to rely on high production scale to make a living. Instead, we can repurpose our efforts into solving specific customer problems. As a maker, you can lower prices if you have to. You can maybe make smaller versions of something to save the customer money. You're really unique in your ability to pivot from selling nice-to-have products like we do today to need-to-fix services. People won't spend $2,000 to replace something that's broken, but they will spend $50 to $100 to repair it. And that flexibility is what keeps makers relevant when spending tightens like it does in a recession. Modern makers are actually in a stronger position than makers were during the Great Depression. Back then, if you were a skilled tradesperson, your market was whoever lived close enough to find you. But today, markets are global, and that's really not going to change during a recession. They're also diverse. So you can sell locally, you can sell online, you can sell directly to business, often all at the same time. As modern makers during a recession, we can sell physical products, take on custom work, offer repairs to things, sell digital files, even teach what we know. Most importantly, you control all of your time and your production. You own the tools, you control the process, you decide what gets made and how quickly your business changes to meet the needs of the market. That means that when demands shift, you can respond immediately by lowering your prices if you have to, and you can quickly pivot towards people that actually need something at any given moment in time. That combination of global search, multiple incomes, and control of production is something that office workers just simply didn't have in the Great Depression, and they won't have in the future. And in an economic downturn, that flexibility is a massive advantage that will help you not only feed your family, but pay your bills. And that's what we're all after during a recession. All right, so here's the meat of this video. If we assume a global downturn is coming, and there's lots of indications to suggest there is, then money and spending are going to get very tight. So what do you actually have to do as a maker? Well, the answer isn't to build more luxury products, but rather to focus on being useful to the people around you. In a constrained economy, makers who survive are going to focus on three things: what they can realistically build, what tools they can rely on to do that, and how they get paid. And if you do these three things really well, then you will come through the other side of a recession relatively unscathed. So let's take a look at these three things in a little more detail. First, let's look at what to build. Practicality is definitely going to win over beauty. So instead of, trying to make and sell awesome sleek coasters, focus on things like signs, labels, fixtures, other types of fixtures where lasers will be useful, for example. Repairs beat replacements. Help people fix things they already own. For example, if you have a 3D printer, then help people who have broken plastic parts on appliances, like a knob on an appliance. Customization is going to beat production. Since money's going to be really tight, avoid making a lot of anything because the cost of selling it in volume is going to torture you. And as much as possible, find and sell to people who still have money and they're willing to spend a bit of it on custom items that help make their lives easier in tough times. Second, think about your tools. The most valuable tools in a downturn aren't the most advanced ones. They're the ones that are the most reliable, the most flexible, and certainly are already paid for. Lasers, CNCs, 3D printers, hand tools are great things that let you turn raw materials into something useful fairly quickly without heavy reliance on outside suppliers or large production runs. If your tool only makes one type of product, then it's fragile. If you can't solve 10 different problems, then it's resilient. Start thinking about acquiring generic tools that can do as many tasks as possible. So finally, third here, you always have to keep in mind how you're going to get paid. In tight economies, incomes are going to become fragmented. So instead of, one big check on a project, plan for several small payments from customers. Customer service is going to be a key driver here because you want to make sure you're locking in repeat customers if you can. Selling to business is a great focus. Businesses are going to be struggling in a recession too, but will likely be working very hard to stand out in a downturn, and you can help them. Now, sometimes you're going to have to barter. This is not the time to think about becoming a millionaire on cash. Trade your skills and equipment for tangible items instead of money. If you're working for a farmer, say, hey, I'll fix the knob on your stove if you can give me a couple dozen eggs. And, you get something out of it, he gets something out of it, and you're both better off as a result of that transaction. So your goal to surviving a recession as a maker should always be to build demand before you need it. Focus on getting known locally as a person who can help others who are struggling, but don't let people take advantage of you because they need to know you're struggling too. And remember that in a downturn, survival doesn't come from sitting around waiting for something to happen. It comes from being consistently useful, highly visible, and independent of all the things going on around you. So let's answer that question I asked at the beginning of this video. If a deep recession hits, whether it's in 2026 or a little later, who's actually better prepared to survive? Well, history tells us it's not the person with the best education or the best resume, but rather the person who can stay useful when economic systems start to fail. Makers who run lean, control their tools, and focus on practical value tend to endure better than the average office worker. Not because it's easy or comfortable, but because they don't need permission to earn, and they can react much faster than a large corporation can adapt to a changing climate. And for office workers, especially if you already have a side hustle, this isn't about panic, it's about preparation. Build something useful now while you still have time and stability, because in a downturn, resilience doesn't come from waiting, it comes from creating value consistently and independently. Now, if you're a maker trying to build something that can survive whatever comes next, and you found this video valuable, then hit that thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. I'll put another business video up in the corner here, and that might be something you want to watch next. And with that, I'll wind down. I'll say, get out there, make your world, and I'll see you next time.